All right, let's introduce our next speaker. Next up, we have Amanda Sage. Vienna artist Amanda Sage uses her painting as a tool for spiritual and planetary growth and transformation. She is a co-founder of the Vienna Academy of Visionary Art and is on the board of directors of CoSM, Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, Alex and Allyson Grey's art sanctuary in New York. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Psyched.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Let's see, can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you.
Oh, nice. Wonderful. Well, it's nice to be here. I really enjoyed Liba's presentation all the way from Paris. And I saw that in my biography here, it says I'm from Vienna, which I'm obviously not with the way that I'm speaking, I guess. I did live in Vienna for 11 years, and it has been a major part of my life. And but I am currently in Colorado, and it's a beautiful morning here. And I have a little presentation that I put together. I think it goes well, segues well from Liba's presentation. And yeah, I could get right into that because I know we don't have a lot of time. Let's see here. I'll share my screen and we can get going.
There should be a share screen button in the bottom middle.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
How to do it. Let's make sure though, because once I share my screen, there we go. Let's see. Does that work?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, awesome. So this little presentation I'm calling Lifting the Veil. And this first painting that I have on here is a piece that I started in Vienna last year when I was teaching at the Vienna Academy of Visionary Art, which has been a school the last 7 years that has been a real hub for the study of painting primarily, with various teachers from all over the world. And I was teaching a 5-week course there. Unfortunately, the schools had to close now because of COVID, but we're on to new evolutions. There's so much ahead in this transformation that we're going through. And I titled this, this 5-week course, The Apocalypse, and the lifting of the veil. And I found that it would be appropriate to start with this image today. And this in relation also to our great subject here, talking about the ineffable, the realms of that we are brought into through psychedelics, and how that has also affected my work. I decided to focus on my work today, knowing that Liba was also going to go into sharing a bunch of other works. And I figured I'd just zero in a little bit on what my journey has been and how psychedelics has influenced me and my technique and my work. What's going on here? There we go. So this painting, I'm zooming back to 1998. This is the first oil painting that I signed my name on. And this was in Vienna, right outside of Vienna, Austria. I had the great opportunity to study with Ernst Fuchs's son, Michael Fuchs, who is an incredible classical painter. And he taught me the foundation of the Mish technique, what Liba had mentioned this just a little bit ago. And it's based on an early Renaissance method of developing a painting. And it's done in layers, building up with light and dark and then going into color. And it's a fantastic way of depicting the visual realm. And little did I know where it would lead me at the time, but I was very interested in learning how to paint anything. I wanted to be able to have this skill and this tool of the visual world so that I could also paint what I felt. And I didn't quite know really what that looked like yet. But I had a sense, and I kept following that sense. And as I continued on this journey of studying the natural world through painting, I became more and more curious, and I then had a opportunity to then work with my teacher's father, Ernst Fuchs. And this is Ernst Fuchs. He was quite the character, fantastic artist and visionary in many senses. And his work was magical, and it was so otherworldly. I don't think I'd never seen anything like it before, and I still haven't. And something that he brought to us was a real, I think, link into other realms. And I think that's one of the things that images can do, is really bring us to other realms. You know, that they have this ability to take us directly there. And it's something, an image is something that you can't unsee, you know, once you've seen it. And it's something, I think a lot of his images too refer to visionary realms. And as you can see, a few of them here. Alex Grey calls him one of the godfathers of visionary art. And I would definitely agree. And I had the opportunity to work with him for 10 years as an assistant, on and off on very many different projects. And during that time, I started to really explore my own work and what I was really, what I wanted to say, where was I going? And at the same time, playing with this transition between studying just painting what I saw in nature to then painting what was in my imagination. And that was a very interesting transition, and challenging and very awkward. And this was one of those first paintings that I did. I think this was maybe in 2000, the year 2000. And this is egg tempera and oil on wood. And here I was really, this painting went through so many cathartic moments of feeling incredibly lost. And it was in this painting that I had this moment with Ernst Fuchs where he looked at it and he said, you know, your problem is you're just not listening to the painting. And I was like, whoa, you know, it hit me in an incredible way of it was kind of like this clue and this key to unlocking the potential. Now that I had the technique, how to let go, right? And there was something in this listening. And that was one of the reasons I titled this painting Silence. So there were these other great influences that came around. Robert Venosa, I think Liba showed some of his work before, and Martina Hoffman. And then I also had the great opportunity, Robert Venosa had studied with Ernst Fuchs and Philip Rubenhoff Jacobson. They were all a part of the artists that came through this lineage. And then I found out about Alex Grey and Allyson Grey, and they were in the US, and their work was really, really touched me, and their story too, of how they had, come to the place of vision. And so I had the opportunity to meet them, and it was something that really opened up a whole new world, the whole kind of like North American visionary art movement, also the South American visionary art movement. And in the early 2000s, I started finding all these artists online. And it wasn't until 2007, in this painting, Birth of a Planet, where I had this real breakthrough, and where I actually personally ventured into the deeper realms of psychedelics. And I had my first experience with LSD, and this painting I did shortly afterwards. and also had an experience through, and this is a question I get asked quite often, like how often do you, or, you know, am I under the influence um, of a substance while I'm painting? And that's a very difficult thing to do, to be honest, to make much coherence, depending on how deep you go. But this one, I was under a small bit of influence. I remember the early morning hours painting on this and getting these transmissions and knowing that I didn't know what I was doing, but knowing that I was being guided. And it was one of the most psychedelic and visionary experiences I had had to that point. And I realized that there was something that was unlocked through this experience, but also because I had so much practice in my hand, and now it was time to really let go. This is a painting that I did a couple years ago called The Witness. It's a self-portrait, and it shows me really seeing through the veil, which is what the great offering of psychedelics can give us. And this was through an ayahuasca experience. And it's so hard to bring that back to share and explain what we see in those states. It is so multidimensional. And here, though, this is where I am seeing the dream come true. And here I see the red road and the green road and this great choice that is happening. The sacred fire is at my throat. And I see the train is in the background. And this is a vision that I've seen unfolding for a long time. And I feel greatly in service to. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. First, I want to share with you just a little bit about how I develop a painting, and go into that a little bit. And this is a piece that this is the first phase of this painting I did for the Moksha Family Collective in Miami. And Chris Dyer has done one of their symbols, and many different artists have. And each different year, before Art Basel Miami, which is one of the biggest art conferences in the world, an artist would do a render of their symbol. And this has very much to do with also the visionary experience. You see the mushroom cap as a hat, and this also the ingestion and also the expression of the visionary realms. And this is acrylic on canvas. And here I start to bring back the light, and I'm sculpting very much in monotone kind of values, focusing on values, then bringing in light layers of light glazes and washes, bringing in color, and then coming back and bringing light back in. So I'll show a few more segments like this of different ways of the development of a piece, but I have this rhythm that I've developed through the Mish technique, and is something that's been a very important part of the development of my work and the images themselves. Another really important thing, and this painting is called The Shaman. It's one of my more also, I think, well-known paintings. And it's a piece that very much, I think, illustrates the experience. I feel like when I look at it, I can feel the medicine. I feel the medicine that's already in my body. And I know that access to these realms is with us at all times. Another really important part of my experience has been this experience of collaboration. And this was 2012 at the Boom Festival in Portugal. And this is collaborating with a fantastic group of artists on the main stage during the Saturday night, the big full moon night. And we painted probably 6 hours straight on this panel together. And it was one of the most psychedelic experiences I've ever had, I think, with the collective, with the music and with the dance dancing in the stage, everything around us was art. The light artists, you know, making light with us. We were painting with black light. We were painting with regular paint, and it was incredible. We had yeah, it was Carrie Thompson did the stage design. There was the artists that collaborated on this piece were from all over the world, and it was one of those moments that was a real memorable moment. Alex Sestoke, Philip Liu, Titian Liu, let's see, Luke Brown worked on the stage, and it was a really fantastic experience. And this is something that goes beyond any kind of like, you know, I look back to that original, the original piece that was so meditative to create and so powerful to drop into the really studying and honoring the beauty of a natural, of something that you can observe, right, directly in walking, talking life. But observing the visionary experience is something that there's so many different ways of translating this. And one of the, like this way of doing this in a live state with a variety of artists where we're not using our words, we're playing and we're communicating through color and through form and dancing with each other, really. And that is some other kind of experience that really, really has turned me on and opened me up. And I've done a lot of live painting as well at festivals. This was Earth Frequency Festival in Australia in 2014. And I've started this painting live on stage, and through each different set of each different DJ, the piece would evolve. And this painting was I don't usually have like too strong of an idea before I start, because I like to see what comes through, especially in a live scenario. And this painting was kind of freaking me out a little bit in the beginning. It was this feeling like this like kind of alien overlord. And it was something that I kept exploring, though. When I'm not sure what is going on, I stay curious and I keep going deeper and saying, like, what is the message here? What wants to come through? And here you can see some of the phases of the development. And as I continue to layer, and I realize that, and I also, if something doesn't fit, I'm like, okay, this is going to change. And so I added in this Aboriginal. I wanted to honor the Aboriginals of the native people of the land of Australia. It was my first time there, or I think it was my second time. But this painting definitely was not this alien overlord that I saw coming through, or that's how it was reading to me. And then it continued to evolve into becoming the wisdom keeper. And this is something that as the painting is speaking to me, I try to follow that feeling, and I can't help it. You know, it's something that is a direct, it's almost like dictated in some ways. And I just have to pay attention. And so here's another sequence of a painting, Sonic Bloom. I did this last year, and this started as a finger painting, quite a large painting, and just following the intuitive feeling of it. I knew that it was going to become a tree, but that's all I knew. And this continued finger painting, going into the dark, starting to define some forms with a brush, going even darker, and then going into the light. And this is a major part of my process, going into the light. This is also what the Mish technique shares. Then bringing in some color, and then refinement. And this is the painting Sonic Bloom. And another major project that I've been incredibly invested in, many of my paintings have trains in them. And the vision train I see as the next biggest party on planet Earth. and that's the visionary family, and all different tribes coming together to celebrate the uniqueness and the genius of humanity. And here the artists are painting their visions and blasting them out onto their canvases, and they're all connected. And I see this great web of connection flowering through humanity at this time. And now more than ever, we need to demonstrate our abilities and our desires and our we need to draw out the vision in every way possible, each one of us, and so that we can also find each other. I think that's incredibly important. And this is a painting called Regenerating Heaven on Earth. You can also see the train in here. And to me, this is very much, I feel like I've had access to these visions because of everything that I've done before. The realms of piercing the veil, have given me this kind of like freedom in sharing, and being able to explore the image. And I look forward to pushing the boundary of this, to see where it goes. And we're at a major turning point right now. We're at a point where we're coming back together again. And it's going to be a little rough ride, it may get even rougher, but here we go. We know that we're not going to go back. And I think that gives a lot of hope, but it's also a great time to listen right now. Very important time to listen and to see how we can be of service. And this is a painting that I did about 6 years ago, called Arise, and it's based on a self-portrait. And this was about, me stepping up to what it is that I truly feel in service to. And I wrote a little poem that goes with it. It is time to rise above the horizon, limiting our imaginations. It is time to open the heart and allow it to guide. It is time to burn beyond concepts and trauma through conscious focus. I salute myself, my mission, and planet Earth. I'm reporting to duty, and you all are my witness. I feel the burning of the crown of thorns as the fall of man into sin transmutes into freedom. I see the light grid of hearts connecting into an ever-changing life web, sparking consciousness as we see our reflections in the stars. This is what I see. I am transparent. I am unafraid. I am you. And this is the last slide I have on here. And this is a painting that I finished actually on New Year's, called Divine Emergence. And it's a little painting. And yeah, I think that we're at a time right now where we've got to lift the veil, and the veil is being lifted, and I think it's the role of the artists to go as deep into that as they can. And it's time to paint our best works. It's time to do the work. And yeah, this is a few of my websites, and thevisiontrain.org. There you'll find a bunch of info also around the nonstop Vision Train Global Art Jam. We started an art jam almost 3 months ago that has been going nonstop now, for the last, almost 3 months. And we are at a point now that, yeah, it's fascinating. If you want to join us, if you're a practicing artist, if you'd like to be a practicing artist, go to the Facebook group, Nonstop Vision Train Global Art Jam, and or also the website. So yeah, I'm checking out the chat. There's a few questions, maybe, or a couple minutes here. If there is a question, I'm happy to answer any.
Hi, Amanda. Give me 2 seconds. All right. So yeah, thank you so much for the talk. Really appreciated it. I'm don't think that we have questions in the Q&A yet, but I have a bunch of questions for you. Just really, really interesting stuff. I'd love to start off with kind of the practice of improvisation and just really listening to what the art piece, I guess, how it's leading you, what it has to share. You know, what does that actually feel like? What are you following? Is it a stroke? Is it a color? Are you throwing in, you think, oh, this needs more of this type of figure, or I need to throw an eye in here or something. What does that actually what does that actually feel like to improv with a painting and let it lead you?
Well, that's a good question. I think one of the first, you mentioned color. So that's one point of reference. There's something, it starts with a very basic, it's either a color, or say it's some kind of subject matter that you're working with, but it's very basic, I guess. It's like, what is happening right now, and what does the painting want more of from what you have in your hand?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very raw, actually. Like, the painting tells you, like the listening to the painting part is a large part of this. So it's like, and the music, like what's happening in the music, what's happening around you, like especially with improvisation, I pay a lot of attention to that. And also, like, is there any more of the paint left on my palette? And if there's not, that's maybe a sign that I'm done with that. It's being very sensitive to all of these things. And if something comes up in your mind and you don't act on it, but it comes again, it's like, okay, I have to do that. I don't know why, but I have to do that. And when I start out with a piece, it'll be like, okay, there's a white canvas, and out of all the colors, there's going to be one of them that jumps out at me. And there's something that's been hanging out, like I'll gather, like almost like they're like little seeds, little eggs, of potentials that just hang out kind of like around me before I'm going to start a piece. And then when it comes to that moment where I put the brush to the canvas, one of them slips through, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And then it's like a big party on the canvas.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, beautiful. Well, and I want to extend on that as well. And one of the things that you mentioned that really resonated with me was when you were, creating this painting live, and it was this kind of like scary kind of space being. What I guess, how do you know when to, I guess, dive deeper into a painting, or maybe even put it aside and start over, but especially with that feeling of fear of what you're creating? I've definitely had moments like that as well, in kind of like the own little art that I do is, you paint something, especially when you're more sensitive with a compound or substance, a medicine, and you create something that you're like, wow, like that is scary what I'm putting out right now. How do I deal with that, especially when it's live and people are watching? What does that, I guess, feel like? And how do you continue forward with that and make the decision of transition in that moment?
Well, I firstly want to say that I think scary things and also dark art is important. And I don't think we should turn away from that. There's a very important part of that, especially in psychedelic work and like the shadow work. And I think sometimes if there's a reaction, if you have a strong, like, emotional reaction to something, there's, it fuels you up to go further than you've ever gone before. And I think with time, you've become more curious rather than resistant, and what wants to happen here, and am I personally getting involved, or am I actually really channeling or working for the greater whole, and that's something that when I look forward, that's more of the role that I want to play.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it gets so, intermixed, especially as art is such a, I don't know, expression of ourselves. And sometimes it can be confusing whether, either we're being judged or our art is being judged in kind of its creation. And I think, yeah, that's where it can become even more challenging. The last question I wanted to extend to is on community and, communal creation of artwork. I think that that's a really beautiful thing. And kind of the psychedelic retreats I've hosted, a lot of what we do is actually kind of communal creation of artwork. No one's a professional artist or anything, but being able to get a bunch of paintbrushes on one canvas and seeing how they play off of one another, and having some people playing music, and just seeing how everything intertwines and being left with this kind of communal creation, right? How do you see that interweaving into, I guess, just the ways that art is taught in our society, whether that's through traditional education systems or art workshops? Is that something that you see being more of kind of a performative thing, or do you feel like that is something that should be integrated more into the way that we actually teach art and having it as a foundation?
Great question. And man, we could talk about this for the next 30 minutes if Chris doesn't show up.
Cool. Well, I think he might be late, so we'll have a good chunk of time, but yeah.
Well, I think that's a fantastic question. And I say yes to all of this, all of that. Like, we need more of this collaboration experience. And this, I think, like, the experience to watch others do something like what I showed in my presentation that we did at the Boom Festival, is like live collaborative experience. Like the Further Collective is a fantastic group that has done a lot of this live collaborative painting together, where they just kind of, you can see how they continuously bounce off of each other. And this is something, and inform each other, right? Like and when you collaborate, when you work with somebody else, you're kind of put into a position sometimes of like, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to work off of that because it's so unfamiliar. But what happens is that it evokes a kind of, like new world of another way of viewing things, and it forces you to kind of expand. And I think that is so educational, because if we can study each other's line and the application, and then we can actually get to know each other better. We can have more empathy for each other, more understanding, and realize that we're not so alone, and each of us is totally unique. Each of us has, and you see that through a brushstroke, and what an incredible medium to be able to explore that, and so I think I think we're going to see a tidal wave. You see, there's one behind me. Tidal wave of artists coming in the years to come. I know that everybody is an artist at birth, right? We're all born artists, and it's either suppressed, oppressed, something that we don't give attention to. But there is so much healing access through art and through the doing of art, not just through the viewing of art. Like, it's, of course, viewing is incredibly important, but it's the actually doing of it, because we have to learn to accept and to love ourselves and to love our strokes and to be curious. And if we're curious about life as well, then we can have a much more, like, we can become more present. I think that's what it offers us. And so I see what's coming ahead. There's gonna be a lot more painting happening, people. I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
We do have a few audience questions, so I want to get to those too. The first individual would love for you to talk about how your research and reading and community informs your psychedelic, quote unquote, experience.
My research and reading, well, I don't do a ton of, around psychedelics, I guess. I have definitely, I kind of like draw a blank sometimes when somebody asks me a point blank question like that with what reading has influenced me. But it's all interwoven, and how the community aspect, there's so much experience that I've had through also the community in Vienna, the VUK, it's an old locomotive factory that I've had been a part of a studio there for 20 years. And, the experiences that I've had there in community and being a part of that has been an incredible, I think it's like a witness experience, being able to, there are things that you can imagine, but then also, like, at least in books, you read other people's experiences. Right now I'm deep into the audiobook How to Be an Anti-Racist, and if you guys haven't dove into that one yet, please do. I mean, the stories, and there's so much that I feel like, at least there's so much that hasn't, I think, in our great, at least in the realm that I'm in, with all the great ideas and things that I'm interested in, seeing how the world can come together and people can harmonize and we can collaborate and work together. There's so much that has been also jumped over in ways of, like, what has been happening, what is happening now that is absolutely not okay. And what we can do to really shift that. I feel like I'm gearing back in a lot of ways, because I feel very, very committed to wanting to do the good thing, and I think so many of us do. And it's just, we have to read a lot more. We have to be, as we go along in our work and following through with our projects, etc., we need to continuously be educating ourselves. And social justice is something that is not, we can't achieve, I think, a lot of the community visions that we see ahead unless we really clear, not just clear, but really identify and commit to the truth of the reality that we're in. I've had a studio in downtown Los Angeles for many years, and I've spent a lot of time there, and I feel that it's been something that I felt at quite a loss in some ways of what I can do. And I'll do little things for the people I directly meet, but what can I do for this bigger picture that has brought us to this point where there's so much division between, the wealthy and the poor, and those that have fallen off the train, and have landed in the streets. And there's just so much that needs to shift. Yeah, so good question.
Definitely.
There's unraveling a lot.
No, 100%. And yeah, we're still waiting on Chris, but I definitely want to talk with him as well, kind of on street art and social justice and a few of those pieces. I'd also love to hear from you, kind of just about CoSM, that community, what it looks like to really be kind of ingrained with, involved with a bunch of artists in a place that's really designated for kind of this type of, spiritual artwork. What has that experience been like for you? What are some of the things that CoSM is currently up to? What are ways that folks can get involved?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked that. And yes, CoSM, the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. Alex and Allyson Grey have been building the sanctuary for visionary art, just an hour and a half north of the city of Manhattan, on the Hudson River. And the Entheon Museum is getting close to being ready to open, which will be the first museum dedicated to visionary art. And it'll have the sacred mirrors. Alex Gray's great collection will be on exhibit there, as well as many other examples of visionary art from around the world. And they've been hosting full moon ceremonies for good 20-30 years now.
Yeah.
And also art church and solstice and equinox events. And they have been such pillars of really bringing together a community, and have been such role models, I think, for a lot of us as well, in their commitment to community. And I think that is one of the things that really has attracted me to this tribe. It's not just like the imagery, it's also the culture, and it is it is inclusive. I think one of the ways that Allyson talks about it is the love tribe. And it's all different art forms as well. It's not just painting, as those are very, primary mediums that they use, but also, sculpture and animation, digital work, music, fire spinning, all of the different ways, and also the permaculture, Delvin Solkinson and the work that they're doing on that property. I think it's also a model. I painted in the Mushroom Cafe, the train coming from Manhattan, coming up to CoSM, the CoSM station, and at the train actually does do that. But as a metaphor also, I see CoSM as this train station that is a part of, this, it's one of the stations that is I guess ushering in a new ways of gathering, as a sanctuary and a place that really honors the land and also remembers the history of the place, and is a place to remember, to come back together again, around the fire or around a theme, on the full moon. The moon is something that we all have in common, because we can look at all the different holidays of the different religions and traditions, but it's something that is, we all have in common. Same thing with the solstice, the equinoxes, and, and I think that's one of the things that they've really been looking towards, what is it that can bring us together, that we can all share in, and share our traditions, and what do they have in common. And I think that's the era that we're in right now, is seeing how many threads that and I see this in visionary art, like that, because it's happening all over the world, and it has been happening since the beginning of time, right? Visions have been coming to humans for a very, very long time, and then representing them and trying to explain them through the visual language is something that is, and that's why there's no one style, of it. And it's something that needs to be expressed. It's an exploration. It's something that's it's a map, like sharing some kind of like reference to another realm. And so bringing together the community to talk about this, like what are we, what are we expressing? Where are the commonalities? And maybe through this work, we can also make more obvious our interconnectivity, and demonstrate that, because we need proof. That's one of the things that Alex talks about, is that the artwork is kind of like the proof of what one has seen, and can see, oh, I've seen that too. That it's not that we all see completely different things. There are patterns, right? There are patterns in nature, and we are a part of nature. And I think, Paul Stamets also talks about the mycelium web and the mycelium network, and how that connects, everything that's living in many ways, and to imagine that we are a part of this network as well, and look at us through this network of the interweb, able to connect this way. It's absolutely miraculous, really, and so to see also the mushrooms, and each of us as individuals, we're mushrooms of this web. Yeah. We just grew legs and are running around, but we're connected. It's amazing. How could we possibly be connected? Well, we're eating things, we're drinking water, we're a part of our environment. We've just grown these big heads that have, elevated. But it's an incredible time. It's a great awakening that we're going through. And I think the time specifically that we're in right now, it's like long overdue, but like, thank you, COVID, thank you for forcing us to slow down, and forcing some of the things to come up that have been going on for way too long.
Mhm.
Like we have been enslaving ourselves and each other. We have been, we've been perpetuating an absolute insanity, and all of us have been contributing to it. And that's the really hard part to come to terms with, I think, and I think the work that you're doing right now and bringing together all these incredible speakers, like big head off, like it's a big,
Thank you.
it's a lot of work, I know, to connect, to rally all these characters, but to give the platform and the opportunity for people to, step up and share their bits of gold, and what have they discovered.
Mhm.
And this is a great frontier. This is the frontier that could very well be one of our greatest hopes,
Mhm.
that the psychedelic frontier, through this link through medicine, what psychedelics does is it links the medical world, the scientific world, as well as the spiritual,
Mhm.
and the physical. And it's a big thing. And the art, of course, of whatever it can do to help, I would love to see any of the, as it continues to unveil and reveal, I'd love to see the collaboration go deeper and deeper, and anything that we can do as artists to support the scientists and the doctors and the shamans and to continue to help illustrate and collaborate together.
Mhm. Definitely. Amanda, thank you so much for your words. I know everyone in this chat is really excited and just here for everything you've had to say. Thank you for sharing. I really, really appreciate it, and I know we all do too.
Thanks. Is Chris here?
I don't know. We haven't been able to find him. We were in touch with him this morning. He seemed like he was ready, but it doesn't look like so far. I know that we'll be having a Wave Paths. I don't know if you know Wave Paths. They're a startup in the space who is developing specifically the music experience for psychedelic assisted therapy. So it allows for therapists to actually be able to layer music to increase the intensity or modulate it throughout a psychedelic assisted therapy session. So they'll be hosting a listening for everyone on here, and they should be ready in around 10 minutes. So we'll hear from them next.
Awesome. I think I'm so excited for all of these different modalities that can help people access this space that don't have to be ingesting something, because it is through visuals, through sound, through frequencies. There's so many different ways of this, and the more people that can get turned on, the better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you again, Amanda. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to talking more for long afterwards.
Yay. Likewise. Yeah.
Be
Be in
well.
touch. Reach out anyone that wants
Bye-bye.
to. Ciao.